We all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everyone to the regular public meeting for the Lower Gwinnett Township Board of Supervisors for Tuesday, November 26, 2024. The Board of Supervisors did meet in executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss matters of personnel, real estate, and potential litigation. I'll open it up to public comments on questions or items not on the agenda. Seeing none, we'll move on to, I'll turn it over to our solicitor for a public hearing.
Thank you. This is a public hearing to consider the conditional use application of Axe Retirement Life Communities, which owns 25 acres located within the MF3 multifamily zoning district. The applicant is proposing the addition of a building at the northeastern corner of the property with additional parking. Conditional use approval is required because the proposed use proposes improvements within the 25-foot riparian buffer area, including a concrete pedestrian ramp, gravel walkway, stormwater piping, and a level spreader, together with minor grading. A conditional use is essentially a permitted use under the zoning code. The applicant has the burden to meet the objective criteria set forth in the zoning ordinance. And the opponent of the application would have to demonstrate why the proposal is contrary to the public health, safety, or welfare. This is not a hearing to approve or reject a land development plan. That presentation will occur after the conditional use hearing, and the applicant must still complete the land development process. We're going to follow basically a courtroom type of format since the board is sitting in a quasi-judicial capacity. For example, we have a court reporter present to take a stenographic record. Therefore, only one person at a time should speak, and please do not speak unless you're recognized by the chairperson. The applicant will make its presentation first through witnesses and exhibits. Anyone in the audience can ask questions and make comment at the end of the proceeding. Only a party can file an appeal and cross-examine witnesses. So is there anyone here this evening, either in person or virtual, who is requesting party status? Seeing none, I'm going to introduce some exhibits, township exhibits, and then we can move to the applicant's presentation. Exhibit T1 is the conditional use application dated October 10, 2024, with exhibits, including a plan and a prior conditional use decision of the board. Exhibit T2 is a letter amending the conditional use application from the applicant's counsel dated November 22nd, 2024. Exhibit T3 is a revised conditional use plan dated June 21, 2024, last revised October 16, 2024. Exhibit T4 is the notice of the hearing. Exhibit T5, proofs of publication, confirming publication of the notice in the reporter on November 11 and November 18, 2024. Exhibit T6, review letter of the township engineer, Gilmore and Associates, dated November 22nd, 2024. Exhibit T7 is the Montgomery County Planning Commission's review letter of November 8, 2024. And Exhibit T8, meeting minutes of the Lower Gwinnett Township Planning Commission meeting of October 16, 2024. Is the applicant represented this evening?
Yes. Is it on? I can't tell.
It's on.
Yes, Bernadette Kearney from Hamburg Rubin, Mullen Maxwell and Lupin here on behalf of the applicant.
Feel free to proceed.
If Mr. Stein, if acceptable, I'll hand out an exhibit booklet.
Absolutely. They're free, right?
Sorry.
These are free. We don't have to pay for these.
Yes, but I am happy to take it back because I do reuse the tabs.
No problem.
You got it.
And Mr. Stein, if it's acceptable, I'll start with an offer of proof, but there are two witnesses that would be testifying, and that would be Marty Eustace and Chris Eisenberg. Could
Would you
we-
like to have them sworn?
Martin J. Eustace, that's Eustace, the third. Chris Brian Eisenberg, BryanISenb.
And to walk the board through the exhibit booklets, which is also shown on the screen, these are duplicative of some of Mr. Stein's marking of the township exhibits. The exhibit tab 1 is the conditional use application with the attached prior decision and order dated February 28th, 2017. Exhibit tab 2 is the original site plan and plans A and B that were filed with the conditional use application. Exhibit tab 3 is the deed for Axe Retirement Life Communities, Inc. Exhibit tab 4 is the October 16, 2024 Planning Commission meeting minutes. Exhibit tab 5 is the 10/21/2024 letter to the township with revised grading plan A prepared by Eustace Engineers. Exhibit tab 6 is the Montgomery County Planning Commission review letter. 7 is the 11/21/2024 Gilmore review letter for the preliminary final land development, which indicated that the conditional use was required. 11, the next exhibit tab 8 is the November 22nd, 2024 Gilmore review letter in reference to the conditional use. Exhibit tab 9 is the riparian buffer relocation exhibit prepared by Eustace Engineers. Exhibit tab 10, which is the one that we're really going to be looking at, I see some people have it out, is the conditional use plan set prepared by Eustace, and it consists of 10 pages, and I'll go through that. Exhibit tab 11 is the zoning ordinance section that we're asking for relief from, and 12 and 13 are Mr. Eustace and Mr. Eisenberg's CVs. So if you pull out that exhibit tab 10, I thought this was the easiest way to do this. And you're looking at the existing conditions plan. So what you see is the dashed yellow is the boundary line of the property. The highlighted yellow is the Williams pipeline. The dashed red is the 25-foot buffer, and the blue is the existing stormwater. So that's the existing plan that you're looking at, the existing conditions plan. The second page is the conditional use site plan. That has remained the same throughout the filing of the conditional use application. So the circle in red at the top, you can see it says refer to conditional use plan A, and the the circle more in the middle of the page says to refer to grading plan B. So if you turn to the next page, this is our original submission for grading plan A. And when we were at the planning commission meeting, Eustace Engineer indicated that they were going to add a level spreader to the area at the top of the page because that would be more beneficial to Old York Road Country Club. And let me back up a little. You may recall we had been in here and received preliminary final land development approval back in 2022. And at that time, we had been working with Old York Road Country Club. We have continued to work with Old York Road Country Club. And as part of the land development presentation after this conditional use, we'll explain to you what has changed as to the proposed nursing facility. It's now going to be not skilled nursing, but personal care. So we will explain that. But we have met with Old York Roads Country Club's attorney, which is now Mary Everly, and two of their officers back in October to explain the revised land development presentation. So when I say we're trying to address stormwater concerns of Old York Road Country Club, the level spreader was one of those ideas that we had. Now, we do need to ask Williams Pipeline if we can put the level spreader where it is located. So if we are able to do that, we will go with the revised Plan A, if Williams Pipeline agrees to that. If they do not agree to it, we will just go with the original Plan A. So what you see on the page, I think we're up to page 3. It's a little hard to read them, which is conditional use grading Plan A. That was the original submission. The next page is the revised submission. Again, it's at the top of the page. And that's when we added the level spreader. The next page is sheet 5 of 10. And you'll see it's a little hard to read, but at the top it's kind of in white print. It says the proposed level spreader. You can see that. And then yes, there we go. It's up there to the sort of the center. And then right below that, actually, Marty, can you read that for me? I had it earlier today. It's proposed swale to wetland area. Yes. There we go. And then that is showing this plan that you're seeing, the tab 5, the page 5, is what is proposed now with the Exhibit A being revised to add that level spreader. Then Exhibit tab, the page 6 is showing you the landscape plan and recreation area, which is the second place where we're asking for relief in that area. Yes. And then page 7 shows you again, that is grading Plan B, which has always remained the same with the conditional use submission, the first one, and the revised. The only thing that changed was exhibit Plan A, not B. And again, this is in the area where we're doing some improvements for recreation. So again, that remains the same, that Plan B. And when you look at 8 and 9, this is just showing you the existing drainage area and the proposed drainage area in reference to Plan B. It's just showing you what's in yellow has been greatly reduced. I know I'm giving you a lot of information. So the reason we came here before you is, again, we're impacting the riparian. If you're impact the riparian buffer or wetlands area, we have to come in front of you. So a portion. Oh, and I apologize. I should step back and go back to Exhibit tab 9. Outside of this plan set is the riparian buffer relocation exhibit plan, which actually I think is page 10 of this. Yeah. It's also page 10 of this plan set. For some reason. So yes, this is it. So you'll note in the MCPC letter and also in your township engineer review letter, we have to provide some relocation or provide you with some other areas because we're impacting in Plan A and Plan B, we're impacting. So this is the relocation exhibit for the riparian buffer. So if we go back to Plan A, the revised Plan A, which I believe is exhibit tab in this set is page 4. Again, that's the level spreaders in the riparian buffer, and we're extending the berm along the shared property line with Old York Road Country Club, and we're providing a swale to the level spreader in that area. Plan B has accessibility improvements, grading and piping in the recreation area, new gravel paths, ADA accessible concrete ramps with railings, storm piping. That is in that recreation area. So those are where we're affecting the riparian buffer / wetlands area. And we had to come and ask you for relief. And the relocation portion, which is exhibit tab 9 and page 10 in this colored plan set, shows you where we're going to do that. Provide that relocation. Again, that relocation requirement is referenced in the Montgomery County Planning Commission review letter and in your township engineer review letter, which is why we're providing it, and it's required by the ordinance.
And just ask a clarifying question.
Sure, I know I've given you a lot of information. It's a lot of exhibits.
So the primary reason that you're coming back before us after the approval that happened in 2022 is because you've shifted how the building is going to look and what's its use.
Shifted, I'm sorry,
The look of the building, it's going to now be 2 stories, and the use.
the building has remained the same and
It's just,
it's
the
been,
letter is, I'm just questioning the one letter that I'm reading in here. And I just wanted to make sure that I'm understanding it. So it's just really that you're going to now add the trail and the bridge, or is there some changing to the building?
yeah, no changes to the building other than we originally came in for a skilled nursing facility and now it's becoming an assisted living facility.
Okay.
And we're changing the bed count from 40 skilled nursing beds to now 39 personal care beds. The building itself shifted 180 degrees. It used the entrance used to face Old York Road Country Club's property. Now the entrance faces internal to the Axe property. We let Old York Road Country Club know of the change from the skilled nursing to assisted living and the 180-degree turn of the building.
Rotation. Okay.
There are some additional, like the bocce court has been added, some trails have been added. You'll see in the waiver letter, parking spaces have been added, but the building itself has remained the same size.
Okay.
May I ask a question, Neil? So can you, this is a lot of information.
Yes.
And I'm not sure I've seen all of it before. What do you mean that you're moving the riparian buffer?
Well, in your ordinance, it indicates that we're providing an additional area that we wouldn't normally have to provide in order to meet the requirements. I'm going to read your ordinance. Hold on one second. You take a look at Exhibit tab 11. It indicates it says any wetlands, active creeks, streams, watercourses, waters of the Commonwealth, waters of the United States of America, wetlands buffers or riparian buffers permitted to be filled or otherwise destroyed by conditional use shall be replaced elsewhere on the site in accordance with applicable requirements of DEP so that the total pre-development area shall not be reduced. So when we show you that buffer relocation, that's to account for the Plan A area and Plan B area.
So on exhibit tab number 9, there is a green area and a blue area. Well, are
Yeah.
you,
And it's a little hard to read, but you can see it up there. The green area says proposed 10-foot riparian buffer. I'm sorry. Oh, if you want to, yeah, speak.
Thank you. So the area in green is the area that we are proposing some improvements as discussed as part of the application. So as part of the requirements, we have to find another area on the property that we can then allocate the same amount of area or greater to the area in green, which again is the area of the proposed improvements. So we're creating an additional buffer area in the blue shaded portion, which is, we'll say, Plan Southwest. That area is equal to or greater than the green area. The blue area will remain open and untouched, so there is no improvements in that area. So we're going to restrict any potential future improvements in that section of the site to offset the improvements that we're proposing within the current limits of the riparian buffer.
How does that help us? How does this help our community that you're replacing one buffer with another?
Well-
I fail to see how you can move a riparian buffer without causing damage to the area.
That's a very good question. Maybe if we can go to the two prior sheets. Well, I'm looking for, okay, if we can scroll down, I'm sorry. And we'll keep on going. Keep going. We're going to find the one with the big yellow patch on it. I think there's two more. Oh, three more. Okay, there we go. So it's a great question. Currently, the yellow area represents that area where, when it rains, the runoff will be conveyed directly into that channel without any stormwater management facility that's going to intercept it and control it. So you can see it's quite vast. Now, this campus was designed, and at that time, it met all the requirements. The pond here was functioning as a stormwater management facility, as far as I understand, back when the entire campus was developed. So how are we going to improve the conditions for the golf course for the community? Currently, this area right in here is really just lawn. It's maintained lawn. They cut it. They have some trees there. So what we're going to do, I'm sorry, if you could go to the next slide, please. So you can see where the area encompassed in yellow has been greatly reduced. So what do the other colors represent? Well, here we have our bocce court facility that we're proposing. Underneath that bocce court facility, we are proposing a stormwater management facility. So what we're going to do is we are going to capture the runoff that currently is draining off this roof and the lawn area and going directly into that channel. We're going to capture it and control it and bring this entire area up to today's standards as far as stormwater management. Now, on the other side, yep, if you could scroll down just a tad bit, there you go. Thank you. So as part of this development, we're going to do the same on the east side. And we are proposing 9 parking stalls along this common drive. This is like a loop drive going to the back. And we're going to put a stormwater management facility partially underneath this parking lot and partially under some of the picnic area. And what you can see in blue, we're now going to capture all this area, again, currently going to that channel without any sort of stormwater control. But in addition to that, we're taking the added effort of tying in the downspouts from these, from this roof area in blue and tying it into our basin. And again, now we're bringing this part of the campus up to today's standards. So all in all, when we incorporate all the improvements throughout the campus with this application, we're able to bring a good portion of this campus up to today's standards, which far exceeds what was required at the time. So I believe we're able to reduce the stormwater by the time it leaves our property by over 10%. So that would be the benefit to the community.
So when you say you're going to move the buffer, that refers to adding the underground reservoirs?
No. So what we're simply doing is we are going to put that area indicated in blue on the prior exhibit in reserve where it can, and it'll be defined as additional riparian buffer, meaning that that area is to remain untouched with future improvements.
Okay, thank you for that.
Sure.
I have a question. Part of your burden of proof is that no reasonable engineering alternative exists. Would you like to address that?
Yeah, I think.
Sure. So we looked at, in this area, due to the uses that are proposed, so you have a grow area, you have an outdoor um, deck area. There's an existing trail system in here, and there is no handicap accessible route in this area that would allow the user to get down into here. Not only that, but as part of the overall trail system that I think the township encourages as well, is that there is a land bridge or a building bridge, if you will. Yeah, if you can scroll down, thank you. Right here. And there is a trail system currently in there. Unfortunately, the clearance at this location is about 4.5 feet. So anybody walking down that trail, they have the strong possibility of encountering the bridge, if they're not able to dock. And let's face it, the residents here, it's a little bit difficult to be able to travel on that pathway. So as part of this application and the overall improvements, what we were able to do is we were able to relocate this trail to this side, and we can increase the clearances. I think we're close to 6 feet at this point. So again, as far as improvements, that's a benefit. There is no other way for us to, from an engineering standpoint, to enhance this area or to better the condition for the current users in this area.
Where does the stormwater go when it leaves the level spreader?
If I'm sorry, if we can go up about 3, I believe. One more. Okay, so for those who may not be familiar with the site, currently there's an existing surface basin that runs parallel to the property line, the common property line between the golf course and the Axe facility. What we are proposing to do is we are going to leave a portion of the existing surface basin as is, and there is the current configuration of the outlet structure. There's a outlet structure at this location, we'll say northwest corner of the basin, which currently discharges in a direction, in a northwest direction, and then it goes onto the golf course property, which does it almost like a J-hook, where it goes onto the course close to the existing asphalt path, and then eventually loops back into the channel that is kind of off the page here, but you can see the yellow line. That's pretty close to where the channel is. So what we're proposing to do is that we are trying, and we looked at several ways to accommodate this as far as directing the water in such a fashion to keep it on the Axe property for a longer length of time. So what we're proposing to do is keep the outlet structure and the pipe system as is, and then we are going to create a berm along the property line, and you can see it's kind of arced a little bit. So what we're eventually going to be doing is pushing the water to be more running parallel to that property line. So it stays within the axe property for a longer length of time. It gets down into the wetlands in this area, which is between the riparian buffer and our stream here. We did look at, and we put effort into looking at to see if we had the ability to put a manhole at the discharge point and then direct the pipe more in a parallel fashion to the property line. So it really keeps the water running parallel. But unfortunately, due to the Williams transmission lines, we were unable to do that because we were not able to get the clearances between the current discharge elevation and the current elevations of the pipe. So that was off the table, but we did look at that.
Is there an active stream on the property, or is it just like a culvert that fills up when we get rain?
I've seen it in both conditions. I've seen it dry and I've seen it have water, so it's intermittent. I'll say based on what I've seen. Other people may say that they see it on a more regular basis. I don't know if we have an image of, if we go to the overall existing conditions, we may be able to see more of that stream as it enters the golf course property. All the images that I have seen with the golf course, there does seem to be running water in that channel.
So the riparian buffer is around essentially a culvert, which is a dry stream bed that fills up during rain. Is that correct? Is that a correct?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
So the riparian buffer that we're talking about is on either side or one side or the other of not a active stream, but rather a stream bed that fills up when there's rain.
Well, whoops. Okay, there we go. So here is the channel that we were just discussing that traverses the golf course property. That comes through our property and eventually gets out to Norristown Road. So to your point, yes, the buffer is associated with the limits of the wetlands and coming off 25 feet. So where we are proposing the relocation, one of the benefits there is that it is close to Norristown Road. So it is going to have the added benefit of helping with the runoff coming right off of Norristown Road, which is obviously all the salt, et cetera.
Mhm.
It is beneficial. So it's not as if we're just sticking the buffer in an area where, so we are proposing it down in this location. You can see, here's Norristown Road, and this is I believe it's climbing a hill at this location. There's also a driveway associated with the neighboring property. I don't know I personally have not been on that site in quite some time, but you can see, they got some improvements up in here. So I believe it's flowing in this direction. I'm not 100% sure, but we are placing this in an area that we believe will be beneficial to the runoff from Norristown.
And again, that would be forever restricted from development.
That is correct.
One last question. So trying to still understand this. So you are not proposing in any way to block that channel
No,
by moving the riparian area. You're just designating a different spot as a protected area.
that is correct. And to answer your question about restricting the flows there, we're actually removing, I believe it's a little over 12 additional cubic yards than what currently is there. So we're actually going to remove some of the material that would be in this location. So if anything, there's going to be a little bit better of a volume issue, if you will, within that section. Volume?
And how many trees will you take down with this work?
Sorry, I'm the landscape architect. Yeah, we're removing 9 trees where the bocce court goes, but we're not removing any trees within the riparian buffer itself.
What about for the construction of the building?
Construction of the building, there are quite a few. You want an exact number?
No, I don't need an exact number. Am I correct that you didn't seek a waiver for replanting trees out?
No, we are proposing inch per inch replacement, yeah.
I'm sorry, you're proposing,
Over 600 caliper inches of trees.
So-
Inch for inch, he said.
Yeah.
so you are replacing the
We're
trees?
replacing the
Oh,
trees.
excellent.
There are a lot of large mature trees on the site.
Yeah.
And it's not actually a large quantity of trees being removed, but they're just large trees.
And I did see your list of trees. And it looks good.
Oh, thank you.
I didn't see any crazy exotic trees on that list.
No, they're all native, yeah.
Any additional questions from the board?
Actually, I just a couple questions. So presently, are there any, I guess, issues with water, like runoff or contamination or anything right now? I'm assuming no, but just asking.
I'm not aware of any.
Okay, and by doing this, the additions or whatever you can do to the property, then obviously you have to come and create a new plan for the stormwater. Otherwise, there would be issues. Is that correct?
It would be correct. We would propose, we are proposing facilities to meet today's standards for the
Okay.
township and NIPD's.
And the plan that you have presented to us tonight, that is going to, you said, create, I guess, it'd be 10% more efficient than what it is as it is right now? Is that?
Approximately, that's correct. Yep, reduction
A 10% reduction?
Yep.
So,
in flow rates, correct.
okay, and you had gone to your neighbors, the golf course, and discussed it with them, and they looked over the plan and they are also okay with the plan?
I have not, yes, we did meet with the neighbor. They seem to be very happy with everything that we were proposing at the time of the meeting. We have not heard back from them in any negative fashion.
And just to follow up on that, I have been sending Mary Everly, who's a member and also an attorney, all the review letters. I sent her the conditional use package today. I'd let her know that I sent her the agenda for tonight. I knew the conditional use would be on tonight. I was unaware of the presentation, but I did let her know that was going to occur. And again, we had let her know about the 10/16 Planning Commission meeting also. And at that meeting, when we originally filed the conditional use application, we didn't have the level spreader, but Marty added that because he thought that would be even better for the water going onto the Old York Road Country Club's property. But again, because of you see that highlighted yellow, because it's in the Williams pipeline, we do have to get permission from them to do that. So the relief that we were requesting is if we can get permission, we'll do revised Plan A. If we can't get permission of Williams pipeline, we would do just the original Plan A. But Marty, you can address this. The point of the level spreader was to help with the water going on to the Old York Road Country Club, correct?
Correct. It's to spread it out so you don't have, we're trying to address any point discharge situation where when you have water coming out of a pipe, it's concentrated. So we're trying to spread it out, and it's designed lengthwise to meet the DEP's length requirements.
Okay, I mean, essentially, we're just up here, just making sure that this plan isn't going to create any other type of water issue at any other location. But based on what you're saying is that this new plan is 10% more efficient than what we see right now. And right now, there's no water issues whatsoever.
Well, I wouldn't say there are no water issues whatsoever. with the
Okay.
Old York Road Country Club. I think back in 2022, one of the issues they raised was the water coming onto their property. And we are, Yes, this is helping to address that issue.
Okay,
Yeah, and they're aware of the plan, other than we revised A to add that level spreader. And I did let Mary know that. But the original filing was without the level spreader.
okay. And then we had, I guess, Gilmore take a look at that.
Yes, Gilmore sent over. They originally, in their September review letter, had indicated we needed the conditional use relief. They again looked at it on 11/21. You'll see that repeated. And then they did a conditional use letter itself on 11/22.
And then,
So-
yeah, and in this letter, it states that there is minimal impact. Where did it say that? So, yeah, due to the minor nature of the proposed improvements, we find the proposed plan to be acceptable with respect to grading and drainage of the subject property. And was that to both? You said there's two plans. If you get permission, you'll go with one plan. If you don't, you go with another plan. So both plans meet the 10% reduction, or 10% more efficiency as it is right now?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, no question.
I just have one point of clarification. I know that in the counties, the County Planning Commission's letter, they just talked about the vegetation and to be mindful of the vegetation around the existing riparian buffer and ensure that that same type of vegetation is around, I guess, the replacement riparian buffer. Can you speak to that and how you're ensuring that?
Yes.
And, yeah, basically, I think they were asking that we would review the area that we're relocating the buffer to and assess whether or not we should add additional plantings to improve it.
Mm,
We haven't done that yet,
okay,
as far as that goes.
but you plan to?
As far as, we haven't proposed any planting for that area, but we haven't looked at it specifically for that. We could produce a plan, to remove invasives if there are any, and plant some native perennial plants.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, basically, we need to evaluate the existing condition first.
Are you finished, Daniel? So this is not really with the proposal, but just a question. So the area that's shown as woody on this
Yes.
illustration, is that actively managed at all? Or
No.
is it just,
It is not touched.
okay. But is that what the county was referring to look at that stand of woodland and?
They were suggesting that additional plantings might be advisable, depending on what the condition was of that area. So we'll need to take a look at it.
Okay. What would prompt you to act on that?
Basically, if there were invasive species in that area, we would have to remove them from that area and plant some natives that would be more adaptable to that location and compete with those invasive species.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any additional questions from the board? Any questions from the public?
No?
No.
Want to sum up?
Yes. For the conditional use application that we're requesting for the riparian buffer, we've shown that we are providing the relocated riparian buffer relocation exhibit plan. We've provided that as required by the ordinance. Mr. Eustace testified as to the need for the location of the riparian areas that are being impacted. One of the impacts is to improve what is going on the Old York Road Country Club property. And overall, the stormwater is being addressed And we do believe, as indicated by Mr. Eustace, that the 10% improvement or reduction will help with what is going on today. And we've kept the Old York Road Country Club informed of all this. And so we do believe we have met the standards for the conditional use.
You'd like to move admission of your exhibits?
Yes, could I move for the admission of all the exhibits?
Very good. Board has 45 days in which to render a decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are they gonna go to the presentation?
Oh, on the land development.
Yeah. We moving?
You're done.
Yeah, I'll take the vote.
Oh, I wrote all over it. I did make notes.
Shocked. No one wants to read those later.
Next, we have before us a presentation. The Gwinnett Estates.
And I'll start. So as I was kind of alluding to in the conditional use portion of the hearing, we had been in front of the board back in 2022 in reference to the building that was being proposed. And we received conditional preliminary final land development approval back in 2002. Since that approval, the plans have been revised to include additional improvements to areas within the campus, replacement of the bocce court, the picnic area. We've added parking and obviously a lot of additional stormwater facility improvements. So yes, I'm already standing out. At the time we received approval in 2022, we were asking at that time for a skilled nursing facility. And now we're changing that to an assisted living facility. However, the beds, when we came in front of you, it was 40 skilled nursing beds, and now we're proposing one less 39 personal care beds. Again, all of this was explained to the Old York Road Country Club. And we turned the building 180 degrees. The building remained the same size, 28,300 square feet. We just turned it so that the front of the building is no longer facing Old York Road Country Club. They're getting the back of the building. One of the other things is the garden was added, the redesigned drop-off area. There were additional parking spaces added in 2 places, the bocce courts, a patio area, ADA ramps for the nature area and near the deck. So when we were back in 2022 and prior, we had met with Old York Road Country Club. And again, I have been keeping them informed of all that has gone on. We met with them in October with Mary Everly and 2 members of Old York Road Country Club to show them the plans and the additional improvements that we're doing, explain to them the 180-degree switch or turn of the assisted living facility building. That we would need the conditional use relief. And so we have received, and so when we went to the planning commission meeting for review of the conditional use, we then got to talking about, not only do you need the conditional use, but you are presenting us an amended final plan with improvements. Although the building's remaining the same, the use of it has changed from skilled to assisted, and it moved. You are adding parking, you're adding the bocce court, you're adding ADA improvements, you're doing a lot of stormwater improvements. So they considered it an amended final plan. And so we started talking about it, and then they made a recommendation based on that, which is how I think it ended up on this agenda for this presentation. So we do have review letters. We had started out with the September review letter from Gilmore, and that was what was reviewed at the Planning Commission, the September 18th review letter. Then we have the more recent November 21st review letter. We have the Bowman October 8th review letter. And I will indicate that that one came to us a little late. We just got that. So although dated October 8th, we just saw the October 8th, 2024 Fire Marshal review letter. And then the MCPC letter covered both the conditional use and the amended final plan. I think we kind of talked a little bit about the tree preservation as part of the conditional use. So with these letters, they are will comply letters with the understanding that we really have to review the Bowman, but we will address them to the satisfaction of the township engineer. There were just a few things we wanted to talk to the township engineer about, traffic engineer about, and we hadn't yet spoken to him. But in general, these are all will complies. We do have a revised waiver letter that I'm going to hand out. If you hold on one second. And when we were at the planning commission, we had an October letter from Eustis, October 23rd letter from Eustis that we reviewed. And you may have had a copy of that as part of your package. And the reason we're providing you with the revised letter, just want to explain the difference between the October 23rd and the today's letter, is that Bowman had indicated that we needed a waiver from 1230.46E8, a waiver from providing parking spaces at 19 feet in depth, because parking spaces to be provided at 18 feet and are being provided at 18 feet in depth to match the existing parking lots. I went back and looked at old review letters for McMahon, which is now Bowman. That had never come up prior to this, and we were always providing parking spaces to match what was existing out there. So in abundance of caution, because it was on the Bowman review letter, we added that to this waiver request. And we dropped off another waiver request. In the prior letter, we had indicated that we needed a waiver from providing required street trees along Norristown Road and Tennis Avenue at a frequency of 2 shade trees per 40 linear feet of street to count the existing vegetation in lieu of street trees. I went back and looked, and when Mr. Hanna was working on the project, we had received a letter that indicated that we should remove that. Gilmore had indicated we should remove that waiver. And for some reason, it just got picked up again. So that's the two difference. We dropped the street tree request and added the 1819 parking length. That's the difference between the two waiver letters. So you'll see at the top of the page, those following waivers, those 1 through 4 were previously approved per resolution 2022-26 back in 2022. The waivers that have not previously approved are 5 and 6. 6, again, the 19 feet in length. And number 5 is we are adding parking on this current plan in front of you. And we're asking for a waiver to allow 13 parking spaces in a row without the required 10-foot landscape strip. The previous request was approved at 12 spaces per row. So we had gotten the waiver for 12, and now we're asking for 13.
So I just want to make sure I understand. You'll comply with the shade tree, with our various tree requirements. You're not asking for any waivers. Thank you.
Any additional questions from the board?
Yeah, so the 12 spaces versus 13 spaces, did our engineer comment on that difference?
Actually,
They received a waiver for having 12 spaces in a row the first time, and now they're going to increase it by 1 space. So, given the de minimis nature of the increase, we have no objection to the waiver request.
Okay, and it, Al is not here. It doesn't impact on traffic flow of the emergency vehicles or anything like that.
Just to address that waiver request. So the request is really restricted to two locations. One is on the back side of the building. We have 13 spaces in a row at this location. The second one is adjacent to the east side of Building C, Chestnut Wing. We have 13 in this location. All other parking alignments comply with 12 or less with the prior waiver.
Okay, but that's still,
To speak to the OWL question, review and approval by the township fire marshal is generally a condition of approval, and they would need that before they could record the plan.
okay. Very good. Thank you.
I don't know, Chad, if you want to speak to the depth or the size of the parking spaces.
We would be fine with the waiver, like they mentioned, existing spaces in the development are at those dimensions. Plus, these are low turnover parking spaces, compared to like a shopping center or something like that. So we would have no objection to the waiver.
Okay. Any additional questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Okay, thank you. Given we have 45 days for the conditional use, do we need to wait to hold off on moving land development?
You could grant the land development approval at the same meeting as the conditional use if you were so inclined, which I think would be January 6th.
Okay.
You would have to direct the solicitor to prepare a resolution of approval for the land development.
For January 6th?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the land development plan number 2004 and to authorize the solicitor to prepare an approved resolution for the amended Gwinnett Estates Land Development Plan. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have discussion of the Gypsy Hill and the Penland Pike intersection. Included in our board packet is a memo from township staff. I think if you're following along, it may be maybe on page 98 or 88 of our board packet, perhaps. I'll find it. So yes, so included in there is, I guess, pictures of the intersection of Gypsy Hill and Penland Pike, and I think I'm going to turn it over to our traffic engineer to discuss.
Sure. We were asked to take a look at the intersection of Penland Pike and Gypsy Hill Road to do a preliminary review based on some concerns that have been brought to the township's attention over time regarding traffic movements at the intersection. Just, you're probably already aware, Penland Pike is owned and maintained by Montgomery County. Gypsy Hill Road is owned and maintained by PennDOT. So for our preliminary review, we collected some traffic volumes at the intersection. We reviewed some crash data provided by the Township Police Department. We also looked at site distances sitting on Gypsy Hill and turning either left or right from Gypsy Hill Road onto Penland Pike. And we were primarily asked to take a look at what enhancements could be made at the intersection to improve safety and what other traffic control measures possibly could be implemented. So in terms of site distances, the intersection does meet the minimum criteria for site distances. But in our review, we identified that there could be some enhancements made. And reviewing the site distance looking to the right, which is, if you go back, Jamie, to the prior picture, that's looking to the right from Gypsy Hill Road. And that's from a perspective of a driver sitting about 15 feet back from the edge of the travel lane on Penland Pike. Minimum site distance requirements assumes a driver is sitting 10 feet back from the edge of travel lane. And again, that's minimum requirements. Assuming a driver sitting a little bit further back, approximately 15 feet, is considered more of a desirable sight line. And when you're sitting further back, the sight distance looking to the right still is in the area of the minimum required, but we feel it could be enhanced by the removal of the cluster of trees that you see in that picture there. There's about 4 or 5 trees. Some share the same trunk root system. One of the trees in the cluster appears to already be dead. Another one may be on its route to the same fate. So our recommendation when we discussed it with township staff and Chief Kenny was for the township to approach the property owner on the corner about removing these trees because they are located outside of the county right away and on the private property. In order to enhance the sight line and replace with other native trees that would sit back further from the road. So that's one recommendation that we're making for the township to move forward with at this point, and we're asking for authorization from the board for township staff to approach the property owner to discuss removing and replacing those trees. We're hoping that the property removing and we're and we're hoping the property owner would be supportive of it, considering that at least one of the trees has already died, and it could become a liability issue from that for them if those trees would ever fall into the roadway on Penland Pike.
Who would be paying for the removal of the trees? Us?
Yes.
And then I know we mentioned replacement and then had some, would we also be paying for the replacement of the tree if it's proposed, or?
They're so pretty. I live right there. They're pretty. But I think the property owner would, they're one of the folks who have certainly approached me about a traffic study. I living right there, I don't know how much accidents are caused by the person who's sitting at the stop sign at Gypsy Hill, not seeing enough in the distance. I think a lot of them are people coming from down Penland Pike and slamming into, and the chief can probably, and you, Chad, can speak to the cause of the accidents, but if it will enhance safety, I'm all for it. I just don't want us to assume that's gonna solve the problem, and I hope we'll continue to pursue other, maybe with the, I guess it's the county who owns Penland Pike, so maybe if they would consider stop
Yeah.
sign or.
We're just recommending this as a first step. We would certainly continue to monitor the intersection. The preliminary review that we've done so far suggests that the warrants for an always stop control at the intersection, which is dictated by the state vehicle code, likely wouldn't be met. And those are based off of the traffic volumes at the intersection during the day, the crash history, and also sight distances. But we are going to discuss our preliminary review with the county and get their perspectives on that. So this is just step one, but we'll continue to evaluate it.
I have misgivings about a stop sign, right? Given there's a stop sign right at Dare. I mean, it would really.
People fly, man.
Well,
And there's been
that's-
3
that's-
cars in their
people
front
flying-
lawn in the
people
last like
flying
2
is,
years.
Observe the speed limit, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
35 miles an hour on that road.
Yeah.
That's not just, I think it's enforcement more than it is a stop sign. I will say that we're gonna remove the trees. We give away a lot of trees every year. Probably could spare a few.
Yeah, I would suggest replacing as well, especially because they're pretty trees.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, and Chad or Chief, I don't know if you can give us any data, but how many accidents maybe in the last year have occurred at that intersection? And then secondly, primarily are the accidents because individuals are leaving Gypsy Hill and making a left on the Penland Pike?
We went back and we looked from the beginning of 2019 until now. There's been a total of 14 crashes at the intersection.
Mhm.
3 are considered reportable. So that means either the police department was called to the scene and a vehicle had to be towed, or there was a personal injury involved. 11 of the crashes were considered non-reportable, which means there was no injury or property damage to the extent where a vehicle had to be towed from the scene.
Chief, can you speak to the difference between reportable and non-reportable? Does that indicate that those 11 traffic incidents they didn't reach a speed threshold or a damage threshold?
It's damage that the vehicle didn't have to be towed,
Mhm.
and at the scene, nobody requested medical attention.
So it doesn't indicate the speed or anything?
does
like
not.
that?
They
Okay.
may be injured, later, maybe their neck hurts.
Right.
You never know.
Yes, we wouldn't want to.
You just never know.
Want to deprive any business.
But it is a very dangerous, again, I live there. It's a dangerous intersection. I know the folks who live at that house and they've called me at least twice that there's been like accidents where a vehicle is in their yard. So I think they would be,
Just to clarify again, can you tell me if those accidents
Yeah.
were related to a left-hand turn or was it rear ending?
It was a combination.
Okay.
There wasn't one particular cause that stands out. There was a combination of different causes. The other thing I'll point out is the one thing, when you look at the data over that 5-year period, the intersection had about 1 to 2 crashes per year, except for 2021, there was 5. In 2022, there was 4. The other 3 years, there was only 1 or 2 crashes. So I'm not sure what happened those 2 years, whether 2021, it was a result of people were getting back on the road after being shut in their house for
New drivers?
over a year. And
it's the schools right
It's
there,
close
you
to the
know?
school. I
Yeah.
wonder how many drivers are younger.
so,
Yeah.
None of mine.
so it wasn't like there was a high number consistently year
Mhm.
after year.
What is the threshold for, warranting a stop sign?
The primary threshold is either for a 3-legged intersection is 4 reportable crashes in a 12-month period or 5 reportable crashes over a 3-year period.
Reportable.
Reportable. Now, PennDOT's regulations does say that, and it doesn't give any specific guidance, but it does say unreportable crashes can be taken into consideration. And that's one of the things that we want to discuss with Montgomery County, since they own the road and ultimately would have to approve or not approve anything at the intersection.
Chad, could you speak to the sightline increase that would occur if we remove the trees? So it's 10 foot back. You were just to clarify that.
Yeah, by removing that cluster of trees, it would increase the sight line by roughly, and it's just an estimate, about 170 to 180 feet
Oh,
would
okay.
increase the sight line.
And if there were new tree plantings there, they'd be back far enough that they wouldn't interfere.
Yeah, we would make sure that they were planted back outside of the sight line.
What about the sight lines to the other side of Penland? So if you were making a left turn,
Yeah, to the left, those were better and didn't have
And their
the same
bamboo
type of
growing
issue.
along there. And their bamboo and.
There is
river
bamboo. You can
birches.
tell where the county does do a pretty good job of keeping it trimmed back. The one thing that we did talk about was monitoring that, both our office and Public Works, just to make sure that the county stays on top of it. And if they don't, whether, keeping in touch with them to make
Right.
sure that they stay on top of it.
My experience with that intersection is really, it's a pain point in the morning when people are taking their kids to school. And I'm not sure cutting those trees down is going to help a lot. It might, but the issue is that you're trying to enter, Penland. The traffic's not letting up, so maybe enforcement of some type would be more effective.
That's an accurate observation. The highest traffic volume on the Gypsy Hill approach to the intersection is during the morning peak.
Just for awareness, has the speed trailer been out in that section of Penland Pike? Or can we not put it out on the county road? We can. Okay. Has it been there? I don't know, in the last year?
Not that I've noticed. I haven't gotten any.
I don't recall the last time it was right there. It was down further before when it reduces to 25 miles an hour. We've put it down there. We can put it out again for sure. Well, we can't put the speed trailer out.
Yeah.
That was crashed into.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, oh, there wouldn't be enough space.
The new one will go out there.
But,
You're right. It's difficult for 45 minutes to an hour in the morning. This is a very difficult
it's
intersection.
very
to pull out
difficult. And it's not necessarily because people are speeding. It's just this constant flow.
Correct.
Coming
And
from
that's
that
one of the
freeway.
one of the things that when me and Chad first talked, some of the accident, it appears that probably what people are doing is they believe they have an entrance to get out. And then they see the car coming from Springhouse is going faster than they thought. And they're rear-ending a car going the other direction because they don't want to get broadsided.
Mhm.
So you pick your opportunity and you go, and then, that car's coming a little faster than I
You're talking about
thought.
going right or left?
Left.
Trying to make a
And they're
left.
rear-ending a car?
They're hitting the rear ends of cars going towards Springhouse
I got you.
because it's either hit that car or get broadsided right at your driver's door.
Right.
Or, hear me out here, make a right and go down Brights Lane.
To come to Springhouse?
Yeah,
No.
you can go back around.
See now, Danielle, you're speaking like I would tell my children
Yeah, that's what I tell
until
my
they get
kids.
more experience. Don't
Until
go
you-
that way.
Until you're comfortable making a left, don't make
Right.
a left.
It's a tough turn. It's a tough
But if you take a
intersection.
left out of Wawa, I think you can make a left out of here.
You can make a left from Mount Pleasant onto.
Right. And
Yeah.
That's the test for my.
That's
Yeah.
the test for
That
safety.
and the drive.
I really don't think we have a legitimate speeding problem, but 40 to 45 miles an hour is fast.
Right.
It's not that much over the speed limit where we would be pulling somebody over.
Right.
But 45 coming at you right there is quick.
Collected 85th percent. Some of the initial speed data we collected, the 85th percentile speed was, I think 39. The posted's 35. So the chief's right. It's not necessarily a speeding issue. It's more of a volume issue. And the volume, there's two different volume warrants. There has to be a certain volume on Penland Pike and then a certain volume on Gypsy Hill Road. The volume does exist to meet the criteria on Penland Pike. It's the volume on Gypsy Hill Road that doesn't meet the criteria.
Yeah, is there any, does the county care in this sort of stop sign test about access to the trails, like that people cross at that intersection? So if there were a stop sign, it would in theory be safer for pedestrians to get across to the trail. I don't know if they consider that at all, but.
I don't think they would here because there's no designated pedestrian crossing. And typically, always stop conditions based strictly on pedestrian volumes are more like in like a downtown or village type area where you have a regular high volume of pedestrian crossings all day long.
Okay.
Okay.
I would be in favor of asking them if we can pay to remove the trees, and I would also be in favor of replacing them.
Are there any additional comments from the board? Any additional comments? Questions from the public? You want to make your motion?
I guess I just have one more question.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right.
I know you don't recommend it, Mimi. Is that because we do this a lot? Do we ask residents to cut trees or to allow us to cut trees down and then don't offer to replace them?
To some extent, you are doing them a favor because one of the trees is dead. You can see how these trees are leaning over, right? At some point, if one goes down, another does. That's if they had to get somebody to come out and cut down, and if they were going to cut down one, the whole bunch is going to go, right? They're all too close together. That'd be thousands of dollars.
Right.
So you're improving that property using taxpayer dollars by that much. It just feels like it's not necessary to also be planting because at some point they're going to have to do this anyway.
Mhm.
Now, I definitely don't think, the township should be the one to remove the trees. And in fact, it would be the Public Works Department that's going to do that. But it's such a benefit to them. You're not doing that for other property owners, just
Why
a little
do you
bit of
think-
a fairness.
Why do you think they're gonna replant something? They may just choose not to.
They may not, that's true. But my guess is if you offer, they will take you up on it. My guess is that will not be the little trees that we give away in the tree giveaway. So it's not going to break the bank, but it's just a little bit of a fairness issue. Like what you're offering to them is far more than what you offer people in the tree giveaway. So that was my reason for
If
the
they
review.
say no, like, hey, we're gonna cut these trees down, but they're on your property, but it'll make the road safer. You've had some cars in your front lawn recently. You might appreciate it. If they say no, then we cut them down anyway.
No, it's on their property. It's not in the right of way.
Okay, so maybe that would be.
Who
a way
in
to
their right
incentivize them.
mind
What
would
direction?
say no to that? What homeowner? Would you say no to that?
I mean, they're real pretty.
If I really liked the tree.
One of them's dead.
Yeah.
Think about
What
that.
direction are the cars coming from that end up in their yard?
The most recent one was the one I know we talked about, where there was a truck in their front lawn.
I mean, off of-
I don't want to belabor this point unless there's some real concrete questions we have.
Okay. Just wanted to know why Mimi suggested not offering to replace them.
Okay. You want to make the motion?
Sure. I make a motion that to authorize Chad to approach the property owner or authorize staff, Fred, authorize an agent of Lower Gwinnett Township.
We have before us a motion to allow our traffic engineer and staff to engage with the property owner at Gypsy Hill Road related to trees at the intersection of Penland Pike and Gypsy Hill. I think that motion was made. I'll second the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next up is the consideration to authorize the final design of the culvert replacement for 48 Marion Avenue. That's included in our board packet as a memo. In 2023, in July, Gilmore came before us after the completed Houston flood study. This was one of the recommendations for mitigating the flood in the residential neighborhood between the Wissahickon School District property and Ambler Yards. His recommendation was to replace the driveway bridge at Brookside Avenue side of that property with a box culvert to allow greater stream flow. I'm going to turn it over to our engineer.
Thank you. That was a wonderful introduction. So since the time when the board approved the Houston Creek flood study, we have done additional survey. We researched the right-of-way and easements in that area and have developed this preliminary plan, which is in front of you now. It's essentially to replace the bridge that is there with a 3-foot tall by 8-foot wide box culvert, which would have the equivalent capacity to the culvert that comes underneath Knight Road and carries the stream currently. So the pinch point would be relieved and the frequency at which floodwaters hit that culvert now and spill out onto Brookside Avenue would be greatly reduced. We, in addition to developing the plan, we've also come up with a cost estimate. That cost estimate's on the next page, but the total, all told, is about $70,000. This is about as low as we could possibly get it. We would be purchasing the culvert and wing walls off of CoStar's vendor, and then utilizing Township Public Works Department to do a majority of the actual installation. The township doesn't have a piece of equipment big enough to pick up these pieces of concrete and place them. So what we have is the rental of a crane and an operator. And we would essentially, my office would be helping with some coordination efforts, but the Township Public Works would do a majority of the work.
Other than the crane rental and operation, when you say majority of the work, what do you envision you wouldn't be able?
Essentially, I think you'd be able to do pretty much everything. Fred, you correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys could put in like a split rail fence. That is replacement of that. There would be some tree trimming, which you guys would be able to do. So, I mean, yeah, pretty much all of it.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out how safe the 70,000 is.
Yeah, I feel really good about the 70,000. I have a quote from this Old Castle Concrete for the 35,000 for the to basically purchase and have delivered to the site the box culvert, and then we've been in touch with some crane rental companies, so I feel good about that. I mean, those two together is 50,000 of the 70.
And the precast concrete culvert, the Public Works folks have the ability to put that in. That's within. Right, but
And the
you're gonna-
crane
I
operator.
get that the crane, I know you guys aren't gonna physically do it, but somebody's gonna have to.
The crane operator.
Yeah, that was my point. Yeah, like engineered out the way that it's safest way to put it in and.
Yeah, what we would do is before we even purchased it and ordered it, we would be meeting with the crane rental company on the site to make sure that they felt comfortable with where we would plan to set the crane, have the truck come, be able to pick it and, lift it into place. But essentially, the crane rental is for one day because that's all the time it will take to set it, as long as the site's prepped.
So demolition to installation, how long do you think it'll take?
What do you think for demolition, Fred?
Yeah, I mean, the actual demolition of the bridge that's there is a couple days, but start to finish with removing the vegetation, grading and everything, I'd say a couple weeks.
Yeah, let's call it 3 weeks total for the entire thing from start to finish.
Will the road have to be shut, narrowed, diverted, anything like that?
I would think that the day the bridge arrives, you would be shutting down about half of, like one lane of the road, but no more than that. I do think there's space to back into, they have there's like a turnaround there that exists. And I think that would, either the crane would be in there and the flatbed would be parked on the street or vice versa.
Can you just walk us through the timeline, Jim, of what this would look like in execution, I guess? Theoretically.
Provided that you author, like you
Yep.
say, go ahead tonight. All right, so what we have to do, what we haven't done yet is we have to have a discussion with the property owner, because we will not need permanent easements from them, but we will need a temporary construction easement to park the crane on their property and do the clearing and all that we need. And then we also need to apply for a DEP permit, which is a relatively simple permit, but it does take about 30 to 45 days for DEP to review it. But if you said go tonight, I mean, we could put that permit in likely by the end of the year.
And is my recollection right? I may be driveway bridge not something that was ever approved or authorized? It just sort of.
I don't believe, I have never seen like an approval from the township for it. It went in the 70s, probably before your records were too tight.
Can you tell, so is this something that can be done during the winter or would it be a spring activity?
No, this could be done during the winter.
Oh, okay.
The one thing I'm not sure on is the fabrication time for the culvert itself.
Okay.
But that's information that could get pretty quickly.
Does the homeowner get any input into the process and what it's going to look like when it's finished?
I don't think that it was my anticipation that we were going to give them any input in the process, or I'm sorry, any input into the look of the culvert, just in consideration of the township's expenses in this. But I mean, we have to approach them and have a discussion about the temporary construction easements. So at that point, they would have a chance to voice any concerns with the plan.
Yeah, but there's no active pushback, I guess, from the homeowners.
I recall they were receptive to it. They just didn't want to go to the expense of it. It was more of an expense for them than it was a concern about replacing it. They're going to still have their driveway. They're going to still have their access.
Yeah, they
Everything
will.
will stay the same, except it'll be a wider culvert for us to.
Yes, they never said anything about anything negative about the replacement of it. They wanted to keep it and maintain it because one of the other suggestions was to potentially remove it completely, and
They didn't-
try to give them a driveway off of Marion, like some of the other houses on Marion have. But they do have a garage that's essentially a basement garage that takes access from that side of Brookside. So that was their main concern. I remember that as well, Mike.
And so oh, I'm sorry, Tessie, are you not done?
No, I'm done. Thank you.
Is this culvert going to be like the widest possible culvert to allow the most water flow? I know right now or is it not going to be the widest possible?
Oh no, it will be sufficiently wide. I don't know that it's the widest.
I don't mean widest
there.
possible in the grand scheme of wideness. I mean, based upon this stream and how it's constricted right now.
I don't see a need to make it any wider than this
Okay.
because what we're essentially doing is matching what is underneath Knight Road.
Okay.
And
Getting rid of the choke point.
yeah, and the calculations that we did during the flood study, they didn't show that Knight Road is overtopping because of a flow situation. I think Knight Road may have overtopped in the past because it was clogged with trees, but not because there was too much flow.
Okay. Any additional questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Okay, so seeing none, we have before us the memo from staff, including the probable cost of the site cost estimate of $70,713.45. And in addition to that, there is a site. Is this a site plan?
Yes.
A site plan articulating what would be included in the culvert replacement at 448 Marion. I'd like to make a motion to authorize the final design of the culvert replacement at 448 Marion Avenue, and for that process to proceed. Is there a second? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Next up, we have before us Resolution 2024-31, authorizing or the consideration of the submission of a PA local share grant application in the amount of $580,000 for Oxford Park. Included in our board packet is a memo. And the memo really just is us authorizing the statewide local share assessment. And the language, I don't know if staff want to give any more detail. But this would just allow us to submit another local share assessment, local count local share account grant for the Oxford Park Playground Improvement Project, and this is phase one. Are there any questions from the board?
This is for Zach to build the Gaga pit.
Is everything but the Gaga pit?
Okay.
We're gonna do the Gaga pit.
Zach is on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, he accepts $250,000 for a Gaga pit.
So this is for all of the remaining. Are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-31, authorizing the submission of the PA Local Share Act grant application in the amount of $580,000 for Oxford Park. We have another resolution before us. It's Resolution 2024-32.
Do we need to vote on them separately?
Do we do them, we need to do them separately?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2024-32. Well, let's first go through it, I'm sorry.
We didn't vote on 31.
I know, that's what I'm saying, let's go back to 2024, 31 for 580. I'm making a motion, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the Resolution 2024-32. It is a separate submission for the PA Local Share Act grant application. This one's in the amount of $999,366. This is for our Public Works facility. It is the same grant application. The actual resolution is included in our board packet. Again, this is for the construction of a public works facility. Are there any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2024-32 submission for the PA Local Share Act grant for a public works facility. Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the consideration of the approval for the licensing agreement for 922 Chesterfield Drive. Included in our board packet is an encroachment license agreement drafted by our solicitor. Do you want to give any context to this, Neil?
This is a license agreement to permit the property owner to maintain certain improvements on township property rather than being compelled to remove them. The license agreement is revocable by the township at any time. It contains an indemnification and release, insurance requirements, remedies in the event of a breach by the property owner. So this is a very comprehensive license agreement that I note has been signed by the property owner.
This is just for us to consider the approval of this licensure agreement that's already been signed by the property owners.
Yes.
Is there any questions from the board?
Just want to confirm this gets recorded, right?
Yes.
Any questions from the public? So I'd like to make a motion to approve the licensing agreement for 922 Chesterfield Drive. Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up is consideration of our right to know policy. Included in the board packet is, I guess, an overview of our right to know policy that exists currently. And I think a sample right to know policy that has been based upon recommendations from PSATs. And it's clear that the goal is for us to prohibit anonymous or any verbal right to know requests and to ensure that all right to know requests are submitted to us in writing on an identified form. And I'm assuming that this is for consistency, it's for ease of processing and documentation, but I don't know if, Mimi, if you want to give any more context to that?
So the state right to know law allows us to prohibit right to know requests that are anonymous or verbal requests, but they recommend that that truly be formalized as township policy. And the reason we're requesting that is we have seen the same FOIA buddy request that was the determination that I shared with you that led to PSATs model policy where you're essentially getting bots that are asking, there's a person behind it ultimately, I presume, but you just you can get these auto-generated requests that are just creating a lot more work for staff. Michelle's our right to know officer, Mike Gargan's our police right to know officer, and both get a lot of right to know requests. And we're going to continue filling 99% of them. We just want to make sure that the time is spent responding to requests that a person asks for and not, somebody who's just going to set a program and ask every single local government in the country. And it's not truly, some kind of necessary need to review or desire to review the township's public records.
And we historically haven't had a policy, but we've kind of followed the Pennsylvania open records, and we haven't had any issues following that policy. So we get right to know requests, and we do.
Right to know requests every single week.
Okay.
And we'll continue to have right to know requests. Sorry, Michelle, that issue after review. This isn't going to change that much. It's just to protect us from the truly frivolous ones.
And so that it can't be exploited.
Have been exploited.
So it doesn't continue to be
So
exploited.
it will not continue to be exploited, correct?
Are there any questions from the board?
How do you know if it's like a frivolous request? Is it just the way it's phrased, or?
You can kind of tell when it's it's not a person who's generating it. So maybe there's a legitimate request somewhere, but it just feels like it's one more step that they had to find an email address. I mean, somebody, if they don't want, if I didn't want Lower Gwinnett Township to know that Mimi Gleason was making a right to know request, I could go to my friend Michelle Farzetta, who you don't know, and say, Michelle, use your Gmail account and ask for this. If I somehow wanted to protect my identity, that's still easy to do. But I couldn't just call up and say, my name, I'm not telling you my name. I want you to do this. I'm making a right to know request, or just program it so that I can send it out to 500 different local governments just to see who bites, to get some information for whatever I'm doing. That somebody is going on record for asking for these public records that we're providing.
And so the PSAT's suggested template stands up to legal review.
It's following a recent determination from the Pennsylvania Office of Open Records.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve. Well, are we submitting are we establishing a policy? So approve of the right to know policy for Lower Gwinnett Township. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? You're fine. Motion carries. Thank you. Next up is included in our board packet is the Township Engineers Report for November 2024. Outlines the activities of the Township Engineer. Are there any questions for the Township Engineer? Seeing none, I want to say thank you for your diligent work and for your report. Next up is our Traffic Engineer Report for November 2024. Included in that packet is more of a narrative related to the activities of the traffic engineer. Any questions from the board? Seeing none, I want to thank you also for your traffic engineering report. Included in the board packet is our finance report for October 2024. I'm hoping that nobody has any questions for our finance director, but if you do, you can bring that forward. Unfortunately, Melinda was unable to join us because she's enjoying a much needed vacation. But she will address any additional questions at our next meeting. I want to make included in our board packet also is our invoice report. Are there any questions related to the invoice report? Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve the invoice report. Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next up is the approval of the minutes for November 12th, 2024 Board of Supervisor meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Any concerns, questions, or comments? Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes for the November 12th, 2024 board meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Included in the board packet is our supervisor liaison reports for all of the meetings that have occurred for our volunteer commissions between our November 12th meeting and now. Next up is staff updates.
I do have one report from Melinda, which is that you only have one meeting in December. She will not have enough time to have the November financial report done by then. So the plan, right now, the plan is for the organization meeting on January 6th to be followed that night by a public meeting. She'll have the November report ready for that meeting, and then the December report at your January 28th, whatever the second meeting in January is.
Okay. Thank you. Any additional staff updates? Seeing none, supervisor comments. Tessie?
I'd like to thank the staff with moving forward with the bond issue, and that seemed very successful. So I'm looking forward to continuing to move forward with that whole project. Thank you for that. And just like to wish everybody a happy, peaceful Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Jimmy?
Thanksgiving.
Persky?
I'll say the same. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.